This video is for Module 2, Lesson 9 problem set. I am going to show you how to do problems 1, 2, and 3 from this problem set. Use the read, draw, write process to solve each problem. A rectangle is 3 times as long as it is wide. The width of the rectangle is 35 centimeters. What is the length of the rectangle? So I know I'm using the read, draw, write process, which means I have to do some sort of drawing or model to represent the problem. So I'm going to think through what I want to use for this one. It says a rectangle is 3 times as long as it is wide. So I'm going to have a rectangle just because I like to have that visual if I'm thinking about a shape and it's giving me those measurements. So it says a rectangle is 3 times as long as it is wide. The width of the rectangle is 35 centimeters. So I'm going to put 35 here. And then I know that this is going to be 3 times as much as that. So the width, and then times 3. And I know my width is 35, so I'm going to think about this as 35 times 3. And then it wants to know what is the length of this rectangle. So I know I'm going to do 35 times 3. So I want to think about 35 times 3. If I know that my width is 35 and the length is 3 times as many, I'm also just going to quickly draw a tape diagram to show that 3 times as many. So that way I know each one of these would have a value of 35 because it's 3 times as many as the width. And then it wants to know what is the length. So again, to find that, I'm doing 35 times 3 or 3 times 35. So I'm going to think about how we've been using the distributive property. And I'm going to think of this as 3 groups, 1, 2, 3, of 35. And that's how I'm going to set up my equation. Now I'm going to decompose or break apart 35 into some friendlier numbers. I'm going to decompose that into 30 and 5, or 30 plus 5. And now I'm going to distribute. So I know I'm going to distribute 3 times 30 plus I need to distribute and do 3 times 5. And now I have some friendlier numbers to multiply. You could also think about this as 3 times 3 tens and 3 times 5 ones, if that helped you to simplify it even further. And I know 3 times 3 tens would be 9 tens, or 3 times 30 is 90. I know 3 times 5 ones would be 15 ones, or 15. And then I would just simply add those partial products together, 90 plus 15. If I think about that 10 being added with these 9 tens, I know that would be 10 tens, or 100 plus my 5 ones would be 105. So then I know I've got to go back to my read, draw, write process. what is the length of the rectangle? The length of the rectangle is 105 centimeters. Please also remember that you can pause anytime in this video if you need to catch up with what I'm writing. All right, number 2. A worm is 21 centimeters long. A snake is 6 times as long as the worm. How long is the snake? So I immediately think I can show this as a tape diagram. A worm, W, I know is 21 centimeters long. A snake is 6 times as long as the worm. So I want to think of that 21 centimeters, but 6 times as long. So I'm going to do the snake would represent, or the tape diagram for the snake would be represented with 6 groups to show 6 times as long. And I know each one of those would be 21. And it wants to know how long is the snake. So my part that's missing here, of course, is the total of the snake. So I'm going to represent that with A, because that's the part that's going to be my answer. So now I want to think about the equation that I will use to solve this. Well, I'm going to think about my groups. 6 groups times 21 in each group. So 6 times 21. Again, I'm going to use the distributive property. So I know I've got 6 groups. And I'm going to break apart 21 into the 10s and 1s. So 20 plus 1. And now I can start distributing that 6. So I want to think of first my 6 distributed to my 20. So I'm going to have 6 times 20. And then I know I'm going to distribute that 6 to the 1. So I have 6 times 1. And now I'm ready to multiply. So if this makes it any simpler, you can think of 6 times 20 as 6 times 2 10s. And 6 times 1, of course, is 6 times 1, 1. If we want to put that in unit form underneath it. So I know 6 times 20 or 6 times 2 10s, that would be 12 10s, or 120. And then 6 times 1, 1 would be 6. So I add my 2 partial products together, and I get 126. So now I'm going to go back and write, using that read, draw, write process. How long is the snake? The snake is 126 centimeters long. All right, and then I'm going to do problem number 3 from this problem set as well. Liz does 25 push-ups each day. How many push-ups does Liz do in 7 days? So I want to make sure I'm doing my read, draw, write process with this, thinking through it with a tape diagram. So I'm going to show this as Liz, and she does 25 push-ups each day. So we're thinking of this as one day, or each day is one day that she does 25. So we want to think about then how many does she do for an entire week, or how many does she do in 7 days? Sorry about that. So the whole week we know would be 7 days. So I'm going to show a group or a box for each one of those days to represent that. And I know if she does 25 push-ups each day for 7 days, I'm going to represent my 7 groups or the days and 25 push-ups in each. And I know I'm looking to find the total. I don't know it yet, so I'm going to put A. And then my equation would be my 7 groups or 7 days times 25 push-ups each day. And I'm going to use my distributive property. So I'm going to remember my 7 groups, but then I'm breaking apart 25 to show the tens and ones to make that a bit friendlier to multiply. And now I need to distribute. So I'm going to do 7 times 20. And then I'm going to distribute my 7 to my 5. And now I'm ready to multiply. So I might want to think of this as 7 times 2 tens, if that makes it easier for you. 7 times 5 ones. I know 7 times 2 tens would be 14 tens. So I know 7 times 20 would be 140. And then 7 times 5 I know is 35. So if I add 140 plus 35, those are my 2 partial products. Can think about, I've got 4 tens represented here and 3 tens here. So I'm going to represent my 7 tens as 70, 5 ones. So Liz does 175 push-ups in 7 days. So I want to remember my read, draw, write process and actually write the answer to this question. So I will write Liz does 175 push-ups in 7 days.